So we're gonna just go ahead and get started. Well, thanks everyone again for joining us. Today is our last day of the Careers Exploration Week, and today we have our amazing alumni here with us today to talk about their careers in consulting. So I just wanted to get started off with introductions. My name is Jennifer Tasneem, and I'm the Career Services Coordinator at the School of Chemical Sciences. So my role here today is just to coordinate and facilitate this conversation. So I'm just going to hang out in the back, and if you have any questions, I'm just going to moderate those to our alums. But students, this is the time for you. It's a chance for you to learn, to ask questions, and this is your networking opportunity with alums. So I'm just going to be mostly quiet and lead the conversation. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hand it off to our alums to introduce themselves. So Supriya, would you like to get started?
Sure, I'm happy to. Hi, everyone. My name is Supriya Hobbs. I am a project leader at the Boston Consulting Group in our Seattle office. I graduated from U of I in 2014 with a degree in chemical engineering. Went and worked at Eli Lilly in manufacturing for a couple of years in Indianapolis, and then went and did business school at Stanford before joining BCG. I've been in consulting about 4 years now, 3.5, 4 years. I spent the first 2 years really taking a generalist path, doing a little bit of everything. And then the last 1.5 years, I've mostly been focused on our private equity practice, doing due diligence on companies across a wide range of industries.
Rahab, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Rahab Khan, and I graduated from U of I in December 2016. I work as a managing consultant for Capgemini Invent out of their San Francisco office. And I worked initially at Wolfram Research in Champaign for 9 months before joining consulting. And I'm also currently in business school at Berkeley Haas.
Awesome, thank you. Cloris, on to you.
Hi, my name is Cloris Wang. I graduated from U of I in 2013 with Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering. And I went to grad school at MIT for a master's degree in chemical engineering as well, but it was a short program. So I started working in December 2014 as an environmental consultant. So this is very different from, like general consulting like BCG or Bain, those big consulting firms. What I do is more like an engineer doing technical work. And I'm currently an environmental consultant at Trinity Consultants. And I have about like 7 years of environmental consulting experiences.
Awesome. So as I mentioned before, I will just let students ask any questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, shout them out, or if you want to put things in the chat. But again, this is a conversation, so please, I would encourage you to ask questions by unmuting yourself.
Yeah, I have a question. So, did you guys have any like RSOs or classes that you were able to like translate into your consulting careers, or that sort of carried over and gave you experience?
I can start for that one. So a couple things. I was a chemistry major in general chemistry, and in consulting when I joined in my life sciences practice, doing mostly change management work, which is essentially helping companies be able to transition to new platforms and new technologies more smoothly, and helping with the people side of change. So my first few clients were in the manufacturing and medical space, where my background in chemistry really did help. And I was able to just understand the culture and the environment and working styles a lot better. And that's what I really applied, and that really helped even from like that change management perspective, in being able to develop some more effective strategies. That was one part of it. And then I was also pretty involved with Illinois Business Consulting my senior year. So just like basic consulting skills, how to be client facing, all of that helped with just this new field that I had no experience with before stepping in. So those were a bit of my two experiences from undergrad.
Yeah, I was also involved in Illinois Business Consulting, but there are like lots of other consulting organizations on campus if you want to get a feel for what interfacing with clients looks like. I would say at least my experience in IBC was pretty representative of like a lot of the dynamics that happen, even in my job at BCG. Obviously, like different topics and things come up depending on, you know, the kinds of questions that clients ask, but I thought that was a pretty representative experience. Otherwise, I guess the other thing I would call out is just like having a background in the sciences or in engineering is really helpful. The problem solving mentality, the attention to, you know, how do you think about and structure analyses, all of that is useful. I would say that the one sort of extra thing that I did, I think maybe it was through IBC, was there had been a couple of like Excel workshops where they taught us some tips and tricks around how to use Excel. I found that within my engineering classes, I kind of knew how to do the basic formulas and make charts and things like that, but there's more to Excel beyond just analysis. Modeling is another big skill set, and so getting some exposure to what that looks like can be helpful.
Again, I guess my experience is still quite different from you guys, but I would say basically all my like classes are pretty helpful in my career development, because again, I'm doing technical work, so having a strong background in your like discipline is definitely help you like understand the process. Also, I guess another ability that I strongly think is super helpful is the problem solving, and also the ability to learn things fast.
Thank you.
Also, I forgot to mention this when you ask a question. Also, definitely introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm Chinmay. I'm a freshman in Chemi. I am also involved in actually a consulting organization. I don't know if OTCR was around back when you guys were there, but I do that.
We're not
so.
that old. But yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty interested in consulting.
Yeah, that's a great way to get a taste for it.
Well, I have a question. So what would you say when you were here at Illinois, or even in your graduate schools, what really drew you to the field of consulting?
For me, it was mostly a practical decision. So actually, this is going to sound silly, but when I was in IBC, I enjoyed it, but my reaction to IBC was I will never be a consultant ever. I want to be the person that hires consultants. And so like definitely coming out of undergrad, it was not something that I was looking at or like even vaguely interested in. And then I went and did an engineering job and I went to business school. And for me, consulting was sort of the next step in my business education. The same way that like studying engineering is very different from working as an engineer. studying business, based on cases and examples of other companies and kind of looking outside in is different than actually partnering with those companies and solving business problems in the real world. And so I almost think about consulting as like part 2 of my MBA. How do I look at how these concepts are applied? And it's ended up being a fairly extended part 2.
I guess for me, that's also kind of a practice choice of joining the technical consulting. I mean, as an international student, it's fairly hard for me to find an internship in industry, like especially those, chemical plants or refineries, because they tend not to hire international students if you don't have a PhD degree. So my first internship was with just my first employer. And they are just a Texas-based environmental consulting firm. And after I did my internship, I found that it's actually pretty interesting because the stuff that we were doing is very different from the traditional chemical engineers roles. It's and another benefit of joining the consulting firm is that you have the opportunity to be exposed to different types of project and deal with different kind of clients, because as either a process engineer role or whatever other kind of non-consulting job, you will typically be doing the same type of stuff for a very long time.
Yeah, for me, it was like so there were a few phases in the process because I came into Illinois being sure I wanted to do R&D in the personal care space. I really liked cosmetics and beauty and hair care, and that's exactly what I did my internships in. I worked in R&D labs developing products, and I realized that the part I really missed was the kind of like the client facing and the customer interaction. I felt really siloed in a lab. I also did a few research labs while I was on campus, and even with those, I constantly felt like I could never see like the big picture and be interacting with the end customer at the end of the value chain. And so with that, I got a little bit more curious about business and consulting. I was also an international student where the opportunities were very limited if you are looking for kind of areas in the chemical engineering or chemistry space. So that's when I stumbled upon IBC. I really liked my experience there, particularly working with PowerPoint. I just built a whole new passion there. So with all of that, I started looking for consulting opportunities. And because I had no previous internships or background in consulting, and being international, it wasn't easy to land at all. So that's kind of why I started as a business development associate at Wolfram, which was in Champaign. And it gave me the right acumen that I needed to start interviewing for consulting and feel a little bit better in the business world space. And now I'm also in business school. So kind of as Supriya mentioned, like it's great being able to actually apply some of the concepts you learn and really understand like the educational aspects of business outside of just what you get to experience at work. And so that's been my kind of journey with consulting.
Awesome. Thank you for those responses. What other questions do y'all have? Feel free to put things in the chat as well. So I know you all mentioned this or touched upon this briefly, like internships or some practical experiences that have helped you. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Did you complete internships or other related experiences that you think have helped you in your roles?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this, but I did all my internships with Ingredient Incorporated. They were based out of Illinois, and they're an ingredient solution provider. I was really fortunate that I got to see a lot of aspects of the business when I interned with them. So I first started in their quality assurance team, and then I did their R&D lab research. So got to see both some of the corporate side and some of the actual lab and R&D work, and get exposure to different sides of the business. And that really helped shape what I wanted to get out of my future career, what I enjoyed, especially identifying the fact that I enjoyed more being in the office versus being in the lab, and making those distinctions, and the type of people I interacted with, and where my interests were there. So it also really helped me just overall as a resume booster. An internship is always a good thing, regardless of what type of internship it is. It's I think there's only positives you can gain out of it.
Yeah, same here. Well, I guess as I mentioned, my internship turned out to be my first job. So it's a very good opportunity to learn about the environmental world because it's actually very different from chemical engineering or chemistry. It's a completely like separate industry, but they tend to hire a lot of chemical engineers because most of the clients that we're dealing with are like in the industry.
For me, I did 3 different like technical engineering internships when I was an undergrad. I would say to Rahab's point, all internships are valuable. It's all different experience that you can build on. I don't think any of those is like directly applicable to the work I've done in consulting. And then when I was in business school, in between the 2 years, I did an internship at BCG and then joined full-time when I graduated. I think one of the cool things about consulting internships is that it's actually a really realistic view of what working in consulting looks like. I did 3 different internships at 3 different companies in undergrad, like all engineering internships, and was still surprised at like working full-time, how different it felt. And that's because in anywhere other than consulting, an internship is this project that they've carved out for you versus a piece of the day-to-day life that you're going to have as a process engineer. I found my internship at BCG to be pretty much exactly representative of what the job actually looked like when I joined, because it's not uncommon to be on a project for 12 weeks and then disappear. Like that's how the job works. And so it was very conducive to a summer internship also.
Awesome, thank you.
I have another question. Is there anything that you wish you'd done in undergrad that could have been giving you like an edge in your career?
I would say that join as many extracurricular activities as possible when you have time, of course. Because I guess for me, I was actually a little shy when I was in college, and by joining organizations like AKI, ACS, that really helped me to learn how to communicate with different people, make friends, and also they have a lot of professional events as well that helped me understand the whole like industry better. I wish I could have done more.
Yeah, I would say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think my only regret from undergrad is not finding a way to study abroad. Like that's the one thing. And I don't think it would have been like incrementally additive to my career, but I think it would have been incrementally additive to my life and my like personal development. So that's my one undergrad regret.
I agree. And like U of I have so many study abroad like opportunities. It's so great that like you can almost find on like all types of study abroad opportunities in almost like all majors.
Yeah, there's the engineering, IPENG, the International Programs in Engineering. You can also use the LAS office. So there's also lots of different offices that can help coordinate those. Rahab, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't study abroad. That would have also been great. I was an international student, so I guess the whole experience was abroad for me. But I was gonna say, really building out your network. I think Illinois is really powerful that way with the connections and relationships you make there. And don't take those for granted. Try to get to know as many people. There are people who will later down the line help you either with your career pursuits or academic pursuits or whatever it is. It's crazy being in San Francisco and seeing how much of a presence Illinois has, and how I'm still friends with all of my Illinois friends, and still like hang out with them, go meet them, or wherever I go, I'll find someone that I bump into and we can always make that connection. And I think it's such a great thing to have to come from a school like this.
Yeah, that's amazing. Even also, as Cloris was mentioning, joining RSOs and such, those are opportunities for you to network maybe in a more low stakes kind of setting. So you can also like form mentorship relationships with upperclassmen. They have a lot of different professional development opportunities for you to participate in as well.
Yeah, maybe the other thing I'd add is that networking sometimes sounds like intimidating or transactional or whatever. And if you think about like what is going to make a relationship with somebody kind of strong enough that you'll reach out in the future, usually it's having some sort of shared experience. It's that, you know, event that you went to, or the like project you did together, or the, you know, exhibit you built for EOH or whatever it is. So like, even if it's not explicit networking events, shaking hands and exchanging business cards, which at least for me often felt really draining, like just go do different things with different groups of people, like find the things that you enjoy, and you'll meet people that way and like create some connections that can be useful later.
Absolutely. And you also, as you mentioned, doing things that you enjoy. There's so many things that you can be involved with on campus. So if there's something that you don't enjoy, you can go seek out something else that you would. So yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to mention, I know it's a lot more challenging with the pandemic. I don't know what it's like to be an undergrad with the pandemic. So I definitely know like networking can seem quite intimidating, but on the plus, you have a lot more people that are open and willing to talk to you because it's so much easier. You don't have to set up physical coffee chats anymore. So take advantage of that. See the positive in this situation. It's our new normal. So I think that's so at least a good thing that's come out of the pandemic is it's almost helped networking in some ways with people you may not easily get a chance to approach.
More questions from students.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I just joined. My name is Nikki. I'm a junior in chemical engineering right now, and I'm minoring in TNM. So I was just curious if any of you were involved in like any college consulting at U of I, like any of the consulting organizations, and how full-time consulting differs from that.
Two of us were involved. Yep. Sorry, I muted myself. Rehab and I mentioned earlier that we were both involved in IBC. I guess my perceptions of the differences, I think in like student consulting, one of the challenges is everybody's like equally competent or incompetent, however you want to look at it. So like everybody's kind of coming in with this like figure it out, learn how to solve this problem attitude, which is awesome and like a big part of how we tackle problem solving in consulting. However, what we also have access to is like a lot of experience that the firm has had before, and you know, expertise from partners that are not 21, and you know, just like a lot more experience to leverage and rely on. And so it can often feel like much more thought out and supported, versus IBC was like a little bit more of a all hands on deck, like we're figuring it out as we go situation, at least in my experience. I also think like because organizations like that pull from across the university, there's a really wide range of skill sets that ends up coming to the table, versus when you get into like consulting, everybody comes from different backgrounds, yes, but like everyone has sort of the same base skill set. I remember sitting down and teaching one of my IBC like teammates from the business school how to make charts in Excel and thinking, how did you not learn this in high school? And so like that kind of stuff I found very annoying, frankly, as like being part of IBC, and it's just not a thing that I have to deal with right now, because like part of onboarding and consulting is you do this training and you learn how to do some of these things, and it's not that anybody has to know this coming in, but everybody does sort of get up to speed to some level. I don't know, Rehab, what was your experience?
Yeah, I think IBC was really helpful in a few ways. I think, as you mentioned, like being able to work with students from all different kinds of majors and backgrounds. That was my first time experiencing that. I was pretty much just like, oh, there are other schools that exist outside of like chemical sciences. That was exciting. I also, in both my projects, had a lot of PhD students staffed on them. So that was cool, kind of, because they were on the older side and had a little bit of a different perspective and skill set and knowledge to share. So being able to work with people just a little bit more senior gave me like, it was a little bit realistic that way, which was nice. And I think that the differences was our projects weren't that client facing. We maybe meet the client like once a month or once and like do a big presentation. And that's usually not how it is in consulting. You're working hands like constantly with the with your client, and you're having like daily meetings. You're obviously full-time doing this. So you're very much involved with the client. You're very, very thorough with understanding the organization and what's going on, what they really need. I think IBC just provides a fragment of it. It's not the whole story. And then, yeah, I think there was a very big focus on like PowerPoint for sure. I remember finding that also quite annoying. Like we just have these mock presentations where they would be like, that's not aligned properly. And I was like, how do you even see that? But yeah, I think there was a lot of that, but it's kind of a good thing sometimes. It helps you for sure in consulting there. We're so centered around PowerPoint and Excel and stuff. So I think there's some good skills to learn there. And yeah, I think in terms of also the lifestyle part of it, I know consulting's changing a little bit now, but at least when I started, traveling was a big part of it. And that's like a whole different undertaking. I know traveling is really glamorized when you're an undergrad. That was one of the main reasons too. I was drawn to consulting. But when you actually start traveling, you usually realize it's in the middle of nowhere sometimes, especially if you're visiting like smaller, more like technical, like clients in the medical or life sciences space or manufacturing space. You might be visiting their plants that's like where there is no hotels around you and you're staying in like a really crappy one. And then other times it's just physically exhausting. You're taking flights on Mondays, your flights get delayed every time on the way back only. And it's just a lot of like that kind of the lifestyle that comes with consulting. You don't experience it obviously when you're in IBC, but that was quite a big culture change for me when I started.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was in IBC too, so I totally get that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janie Winicky. I'm a freshman. I'm currently undecided. And so I kind of wanted to ask how each of you realized that you wanted to go into consulting, or like what experiences you wanted to gain that you felt like you might not have already had with your previous experience. And so just kind of getting a feel of that.
Yeah, so my first job out of college was as a process engineer. And so that was sort of the classic, like, you know, own a process, support troubleshooting, like support continuous improvement, all of that stuff. And so for me, going into consulting was kind of the logical next step after doing business school, which was like, I've not seen any business problems in the real world. I've only seen them in a classroom setting. And so how do I go get some experience doing this, you know, in real companies outside of a pure academic environment? I also think one of the things that's really appealing, at least to me, was like, if I looked at my classmates in business school who had come from consulting, they seemed to have like one, a level of polish that I really admired. And then two, like the audacity to jump in and work on a problem that they had no background in. And they had just like built that muscle on, you know, how do I jump into something and be fearless and like not let the lack of knowledge on this topic overwhelm me, but just take this complex question and really break it into different pieces that feel much more manageable. And those were two things I really wanted to pick up. And so consulting felt like a good way to do that.
Awesome, thank you. So how do you think each of your degrees or your Illinois education have prepared you or shaped you for your roles? I know you kind of also touched upon this a little bit before, but.
I think there's a few things. I mean, firstly, I think Illinois just has a great reputation and presence, and it's really valuable, particularly in Chicago. So if you are looking for so many like big consulting offices have presence in Chicago, and it's really great having them recruit from Illinois and having alumni relationships to Illinois. So I think that was really valuable, just our location and just our physical presence. And then secondly, like in terms of, I think it's great that all of you here are STEM majors. I think there's a great value of that for that in consulting. And within Illinois, we're obviously really well known for our STEM classes and stuff like that, like research and opportunities you get there. And I think it really develops a strong sense of thinking, particularly like analytical problem solving. And that's really applicable anywhere, whether you take it in consulting or any other industry or field. So that's great. And also just the different organizations that you can join. So I know I touched upon IBC a few times, but I also worked at the Career Services Center. So that was a great experience for me, particularly being an international student. It helped me kind of gain insight to some more hacks as an international student that you can pursue to try and open up more opportunities for you. And then I was also a teaching assistant, and that was another way I really learned that I liked talking to people, working with people, and being more in the presence of people versus in like a lab. So just all those experiences you can gain in Illinois, because there is so much it offers, and so many different people you get to meet, clubs you get to join, I think overall will really help you kind of shape your interests, as well as identify what's really good for you and how you want to move forward in your career.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Rehab just stated. I guess for me, a little bit more to add is that since U of I has a strong like engineering background, so all the technical stuff that you learn are going to help build your like career development overall, I guess, because to do whatever job that you are going to do in the future, a strong background will definitely help you stand out. And the like through the process, you like you may. So I guess in general, for a lot of the jobs, is that like what you do at work is completely different from what you learn at school. but the stuff that you learn in school help you build the ability to develop your either your learning skill or your communication skill or your problem solving mindset. That's very important, and you will not notice that like explicitly, but you will learn that like that those skills are very helpful when you start do training, or like start working with colleagues, or with your mentors. You will learn that those stuff are very helpful. And I guess for another thing that I do want to add is I also did TA in my undergrad, but I also I also worked as an undergrad assistant, lab assistant in one of the professor's lab. And I guess that experience kind of helped me understand that I don't want to go to grad school for PhD. So that's kind of another like way to help you understand like if another choice is good for you or is meant for you.
I totally agree with everything that's been said. I think there's like a ton in the academic experience that just trains you well. I was also like very involved in different clubs, like especially Society of Women Engineers and a few different committees of engineering council, and just learned a ton about like how to work together and how to organize events and like how to, marketing, right? How do you get your peers to join these things? And I spent a bunch of time doing engineering outreach with kids in the community, like in classrooms in Urbana. And, it sounds like little silly activities, but also how do you take technical concepts and explain them in a way that's relatable? Like, you don't have to dumb it down all the way to kindergarten level most of the time, but there is something to be said for being able to communicate in a way that people that don't have a technical background can understand. The only other thing I'll add is you definitely get brownie points for having an engineering degree or like a hardcore science degree. I did a client project where we were working with clients and like walking around an airplane maintenance hangar all day, every day, which like, I really don't know anything about airplane maintenance. My chemical engineering degree did not particularly prepare me to talk about airplane maintenance, nor should it have. But still, when the clients asked like, oh, what did you both study? And my colleague mentioned that she studied French and I said engineering, I definitely got brownie points for engineering. So this is something that's lasting.
Yeah, to add to that, if any of you do plan on going to business school, I can promise you it's a lot easier than anything you've done. I feel like after doing chemistry, it's just nothing can get as hard.
That's great to know. And like Clara said, right, even if you don't enjoy an experience, there's something to still learn from it. You learn that you maybe don't want to pursue that path, but something else. So yeah, absolutely.
I got to get to class now, but thank you guys so much for doing this.
Thanks for joining.
So I have a question. My name's Donnie. I'm a junior in chemical engineering. And throughout the last year and really my last internship, I kind of found out that I don't want to go into a technical role after graduation. And I haven't really been involved in like IBC or any of the consulting clubs on campus. Are there things I can do in the next few months to kind of prepare me to go into a more consulting like role? Is it possible to break into the industry? That kind of thing. So thank you.
I guess I can start with that since I know that you guys have like very good experience that help you to get internship. But for me, I actually also tried to go to the general consulting, like business consulting type when I was starting looking at jobs in the beginning. But I don't like what Donnie you said, like I don't really have any past experience to support that. But one thing, as we just mentioned, like consulting work actually likes engineering background a lot. So with your major, you already have like step one. You're not starting from ground zero. So you already have a basis for that. And then I guess something that you can definitely do in the next few months is to do case studies, because that's basically like questions to be asked for sure during your interview. And then that's something that you will not learn without like that's something that you have to prepare for, because that's not like behavioral questions or technical questions that you can just prepare for a few days and be ready. It's like case studies is very systematic and hard questions. And I know that there are a lot of like case study books or resources that you can look for that will definitely make you more prepared when you are, you know, like going to the career fairs or preparing for the interviews for that. And it's never too late to join IBC, I guess.
Yeah, I was actually kind of in the same, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would agree. It's definitely never too late. And joining a consulting organization is not the only way to prepare yourself. Like you can certainly get to consulting without that.
Yeah, and I was kind of in the same boat too, because I found out after my junior year internship as well that I didn't want to do chemistry anymore. So I did join IBC just my senior year. So I was only there for 2 semesters. So even though it was a short-lived experience, I think it was still valuable. So they're still open to taking more people, but even outside of that, I know so many of my friends who got into consulting with absolutely like no involvement with any of those clubs. I think the 2 things that I learned when I was very last minute shifting my career trajectory was, firstly, you do have to learn how to tailor your resume a little bit differently. So I worked with one of my friends who had consulting internships, and he was an engineer, and he like saw my resume and I had all these like chemistry processes and everything listed out on it, and he was like, that's not going to work. So you have to like learn how to kind of tailor your resume to be a little bit more consulting focused, even if your background is technical. So that is just like showing like some of the profit and impacts that you had on a certain process improvement that you did, for example. So I think being able to change that will help kind of get you that initial foot in the door with some of these consulting firms, which can be very competitive. And then from there, your engineering background will only help you out with being able to solve the cases. As Cloris mentioned, just keep practicing those, but they get a lot easier, especially the math component, if you do have like a STEM background. And then also, I guess like you can, I attended a lot of like business career fairs too. I didn't limit myself just to like the science career fairs, and also not limiting yourself just to consulting roles. I think if you know for sure you don't want a technical field, there's, especially today, so many different kinds of business roles like product management, business operations or biz ops, and all these fields that are almost like different variations of consulting, even if they're with one company. So I think you can kind of, I, for example, applied to first a business development role. So that at least helped again with getting my foot in the door with consulting. So I think just broadening your reach will help.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Maybe one other, not exactly the question you asked, but I also had a similar experience in my junior year summer internship, thinking like, man, I really don't want to be an engineer for the rest of my life. And what I ended up doing was applying to business schools while I was still in undergrad. So there are a few business schools that do these deferred MBA programs where you can apply and then go work for a couple of years and then go to business school already with the admission in hand. And so I ended up doing that and then taking the engineering job and working as a process engineer for a couple of years, knowing that I would leave and go to business school later. And obviously, like, everybody can only speak to their own experience, but I'm really, really glad I spent those couple of years like working on a manufacturing floor, because there are not that many people in consulting circles that have done that. And so it really is sort of a different profile. There are lots of people with engineering degrees in consulting. Like, it is super respected and like a you know, well-trodden path. And I've since been really grateful that I spent those couple of years doing the classic engineering role. But definitely like get you on needing an escape route after that, because I definitely felt that way.
So you all mentioned a little bit about case interviews. I know a lot of students find that a little bit intimidating, going into case interviews, not knowing what maybe like what types they could be like. So do you have any advice for people for case interviews?
I mean, I found them super intimidating to start with. They'd give you like 2 sentences on a company and say, okay, like, what's the problem? Why are they not profitable? And the engineer in me was like, well, you've not given me any data. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? And so the biggest adjustment for me was having to figure out how to be more hypothesis driven and say, okay, like, this is the world of things that could be going on with this company, and then selectively ask for data to, you know, prove or disprove the various hypotheses. It was like very much a flipped mindset versus how at least I was used to processing information, which was like, you know, okay, maybe you go into a lab with a hypothesis, sure, but it's the hypothesis that the lab class gave you, and like, you go collect the data and then see what the data tells you. And this is just a really flipped way of orienting yourself. Yeah, so that was the biggest adjustment for me. Really, it's just practice. Like, practice, watch some of the YouTube videos, practice with friends. It does get easier. And it's a good measure of whether or not you'll like the job. Like, our job is not actually like case studies most of the time, but if you enjoy those, you're more likely to enjoy the job.
Very true statement. I found out like when I was preparing for the case interviews, I'm like, I don't really like this. So that's why I didn't really ended up in business consulting, I guess. And another good question for the students is, I know that we have so many excellent career services, and we also have mock interviews available, but I'm not sure if the the career services at the chemical school have mock interviews for case studies. I mean, case interview. Do we have those as well?
So we don't officially have those, but I have done some case interviews with a student who had requested those. So even though I'm not a consultant myself, I can sort of work on them on a one-on-one basis with students. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful. Like, so I mean, I guess for you guys, you can definitely, you should like take advantage of the great services there.
The other thing as well with there are lots of students who are involved with IBC, things like that. So when you go out to talk to people, when you go out to AKI or ACS meetings, you can find more about them, and then also practicing with peers who kind of know the process a little bit better.
Yeah, totally. I think practicing with people really helps. Like when I was, yeah, I did not enjoy the case interview process. I don't know if I still do, but it is intimidating. But I think I learned a lot first just off of YouTube videos and reading books and things like that. But then I realized I really struggled with speaking out loud, like my thoughts, and you have to actually walk through someone with these cases. I know I actually did a couple case interviews virtually as well, and that's a whole different ballgame because you can't actually show them your work. So I think being able to do it with people, there's a lot of value in that and being prepared for it. I can say from being on the interviewing end, I was shocked at how many kids applied for consulting roles. I did not know that they had to do case interviews, and they were just like, we've never done anything like this before. Please be prepared. It is not a good look if you don't know that consulting involves case interviews. I try and spend some time. I know sometimes when you get interview calls, you might not have enough time, but even just having the basics of how you should be questioning, what is expected, what the process looks like, really helps with getting just a good experience out of the case interview.
Yeah, I've also had students or recent alums reach out to me like via LinkedIn and say, hey, will you run a practice case with me? I would say like, absolutely go for it, reach out. And I would reserve that for when you're already pretty comfortable with the case interview process. It's sort of a waste of that like goodwill to do that when you're still really early stages. And what's better is to go to somebody that's been on the interview side when you're like 80% of the way there and need help getting the last, like closing that last 20% gap.
Fabulous advice. So kind of thinking about, you all mentioned your roles more as a big picture thing, but can you tell us briefly about maybe what your day-to-day life at work kind of looks like as a consultant?
Well, I guess I can talk first. Again, since I'm doing technical consulting, my area of expertise is air permitting and compliance support. And I'm currently on site at a client facility. You can probably tell from the wall at the plant. And then my work routine includes like preparing permit applications for federal and statewide pre-construction permits. And sometimes I will conduct emission calculations for various sources. And then there are a lot of times I have to provide support for random compliance tasks. So it's all like client needed basis. And then I also work on agency reporting programs, which also just involves with like a bunch of emission calculations. And then like I guess the client interaction side is I have to request data from the client. That's the most interaction that we have. I mean, of course, like we have like routine conversations about like, oh, what type of things are you working on? Do you have any concerns, or like is there anything that you need help with? That's just a process for me to identify if there are any like potential work that I can help with, or if there is any like upcoming opportunities to help me plan my workload as well.
Chasing clients for data is the worst. It's my least favorite thing to do.
I know, that's why on-site help, because you can just chase after them when they don't respond.
Physically chase them instead of like Zoom chasing them. Yeah. So I, for the last like year and a half, have been doing due diligence projects for private equity clients. So these are like 3-week projects, really short, where the client will usually ask us, hey, we're interested in evaluating X company, and we might make an investment. Can you look at the company, the market, the competition, and help us understand, like, is this a good company? Are they positioned well? Do their customers like them? All of that. And so over the course of 3 weeks, at this point, like, I lead a team that helps address all of those questions. And we'll do that through gathering data and building a market model to size how big the market opportunity is and estimate what growth looks like. We'll interview a bunch of experts to understand their perspectives on the industry. We might run a survey of customers. So like my most recent project was on an activewear company. So like think, leggings and things like that. So we ran a survey and surveyed a couple thousand consumers on, what are your buying patterns with leggings and shorts and things like that. And then you kind of put all of that together and come up with an answer on, do we like this company? Where are their strengths and weaknesses? Yeah, that's kind of the job in a nutshell.
Yeah, so I'm in a technology consulting, so mostly help clients with implementing new software or digital solutions. So like right now we are implementing like different kinds of chatbots and automating a lot of manual services that our client has. So with that, my day-to-day activities and I should also say I specialize in change management, where I help with the people side of this transition as they implement these changes. My day-to-day activities involves a lot of working with the client and understanding their pain points and understanding which areas will be impacted most by this change or which will not be as much of a big deal, I guess. Kind of identifying those and then identifying who our like key stakeholders are within these within the organization or outside the organization, like how a customer is going to be impacted by this and how their processes will be changing. So doing a lot of analysis of that and identifying what is a more efficient new way of working for them. I think big part of that is just a lot of interviews, a lot of surveys, kind of what Cyprian mentioned, and just understanding the client landscape and their current as-is ways of working and how they do things today, so we can get them more comfortable with the future state.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm a junior in Chemi here. So I had a question. So I know like you guys, or two of you, I believe, went to get your master's in business. Like, when did you like decide that like maybe that would be something that you wanted to do? And also, while you guys were getting your master's, did you like work while you were doing it, or how did that work?
I can start. So I decided to apply to business school when I was still in undergrad. So I did an internship my junior year that made me think like, I really don't want to be an engineer forever. And so I applied to a couple of deferred admission programs where basically you can apply and be accepted to business school with the expectation that you go work for a couple of years and then go back to school. Mine was a full-time program. And so I like fully stopped working for 2 years, relocated, like lived on campus, had a summer internship between the 2 years, kind of the whole deal.
Yeah, and for me, I think, so when I was an undergrad, my senior year, I applied for the Harvard Business School Peak Weekend, which I know I've also done presentations for while I was at U of I, and I think there's been a lot of U of I kids since who've done the program or have entered to their 2+2 program, which I highly recommend looking into. It's similar to the Stanford one where you apply as an undergrad, and then you're able to secure a position 2 years later. But when I attended that program, it was a 3-day program where you go experience what business school classes are like. I had no clue what an MBA was before that. I just kind of applied on a whim, and I was blown away with just how well it was structured, the case study method, and just the opportunities I guess business school holds. I met a lot of like alumni and people who kind of talked about their experience after business school and the path it paved for them. So I was pretty inspired by that. But I also had learned that you need a lot of work experience to go into business school. So I didn't end up doing the like undergrad application route. I just kind of worked in consulting, and then within consulting, I saw a lot of my peers had also went either left for business school or were doing a degree while working. So that's why I applied to Berkeley. So I'm actually currently doing my MBA while working as well. So I'm a part-time student. I couldn't really differentiate too much between the part-time or the full-time program and which one would be more suitable. It really came down to finances for me. It just helped being able to continue working and earning while getting my degree. And I am fortunate. I would imagine BCG is a lot more stressful. Like I'm fortunate that in my type of consulting, my workload is pretty manageable with school. I'm able to carve out time to actually go to classes and have a proper kind of work-life balance between school and doing my day job. So that's kind of what prompted me to do the part-time program. But you can always explore that when you get closer to applying to business school and see which one's the right program for you, and also what you want to do post-business school. So my goal is to actually exit out of consulting. So that was another reason what prompted me to go into business school, was when I knew that I was ready for a career change and I needed a way to get all the resources again that you do when you're in school. So yeah.
Thank you guys.
Of course, I know you mentioned your master's was in chemical engineering, but can you also talk more about that? What prompted you to take that route first?
So as I mentioned, when I was doing my undergrad research, I found that I may not want to pursue a PhD degree, but I do want to have a graduate degree after college. So when I was searching for the program, I actually did apply a few PhD programs, but I went to MIT at the end. Well, I guess first of all, of course, because of the fame, but secondly, the program that I went to is really unique because that's it. The whole program is called Chemical Engineering Practice. It consists of like 2 semesters of like core studies, and then plus 1 semester of practice school, and that's basically another type of internship. But instead of like doing an actual internship in the industry, this type of thing is more a collaboration between the college and specific companies, and they will develop some sort of like specific problems for the students to solve. So I think that's really helpful for me, is to just get more practical experiences while still being able to obtain an advanced degree in the same time. And it's short, like you can finish it in a year, so that's very helpful too.
Awesome. Nidhi, did you have any questions? So I have another one. So what advice do each of you have for undergrads who are kind of starting their career exploration process, maybe for people who don't know what they're planning to do in the long term, or even if they do, any advice?
try a little of everything. I mean, I did 3 vastly different internships. Like within engineering, I spent 1 summer working on laundry detergent, the next summer in an R&D lab for landfill liners, and then the following summer in a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility. So like pretty different industries, different geographies, just like a wide range of roles. Yeah, I mean, I think like that's my best recommendation is try all the things, see what you like, recognize what you don't like, and also make decisions based on that. The more experiences you can get, the more informed you can be. And also recognize like your first job out of college is not the end all be all. Like it's the first step. I have to keep telling myself that now, what, 8 years after I graduated, that like still I'm in the early phases of my career and what I do next doesn't matter all that much. So yes, it feels super consequential, but in reality, like people move, it changes. It's important, but like it's not the defining feature of your career.
Yeah, I would say kind of the same. Definitely try it all. There's a lot of value in knowing what you don't like as much as knowing what you like. So I think sometimes, like, even if you feel a little disgruntled by the experiences you've had or in seeing that you haven't enjoyed anything, it's okay. I felt like I went through a lot of that, of like finally getting to a stage where I felt comfortable and happy with my choices. But I look back at it now with just having a lot more understanding of my personal interests, where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are. And I think it's a great discovery process in college that you can leverage. And there's so many resources. I would definitely say hone those. I think this is the time when you have access to things like career services and people that you can just tap on whenever you need support for anything, or whenever you want to practice for an interview, or all of those kind of resources are really valuable. This is the best opportunity and time to maximize on them. So I would say that, and yeah, and definitely, yeah, your first job, especially, I know for international students, it can be very intimidating, but I know I was able to change my job, and there's always an option out or a different option that you can explore even going forward. This is just the start of your career.
Yeah, totally agree with all being said. And I guess one more thing to add is I think there is another program or I mean another type of service that we provide at U of I. I forgot what it's called, but I think like maybe it's just in the winter, or maybe we have it in the winter or the summer, is that there is a 1 day or 2 day event where like invited alum from the industry will show the students their routine, like their work routine. I did that once with one of the company, but I know that there are some other opportunities that we provide as well. I just forgot what does it called. That's another way to explore.
Yeah, we don't have any formal shadow programs. Maybe you're referring to that, but there are alums who do offer that opportunity.
Yeah, and exploring doesn't have to mean doing the work yourself. Exploring can mean having a couple conversations, coming to a session like this, right? I don't know, reach out to alums that you think are doing interesting things on LinkedIn. Only make the note personal. Like, tell me what we have in common and say, I have some questions, and make sure the questions are good. But most people are really willing to talk if you like write a compelling enough note that makes somebody want to answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's actually such a good point. I was always very intimidated to reach out to people on LinkedIn, just being like, I'm like 10 years junior in my career. Why do these people care about me? But people love talking about themselves. I mean, that's the reason we're all here too. So you'll be surprised at how open and warm people can be on LinkedIn messages if you craft it well. And just a tip, like every company has a referral bonus. So I want you to get the job as much as you want to get the job to be able to leverage that. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I personally spent hours coaching somebody who eventually did end up joining BCG, somebody from U of I who cold emailed me on LinkedIn, who then ended up joining. So yeah, just try to make a personal connection. And, you know, we're human. We want to feel like it's us specifically you want to talk to because we share something in common, not that you want fill in the blank any consulting firm employee ever.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such great advice. Every time when we talk about networking to students, especially networking through LinkedIn, we do encourage them and suggest them to send that personal note with the connection request. Awesome. Well, those are all the questions I had for you all. Anyone else have any questions? Patricia, do you have any questions? Oh, you're muted.
Oh my goodness.
I don't have questions now.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, alums, for joining. This was a great conversation. Thank you again so much for your time. Supriya, you're in another time zone, so I appreciate you joining. Also, Rehab and Chloris. So I thank you all for being here. And if you haven't already sent me your addresses, please do send me that so that I can send you a thank you note.
Thank you. Can you